In this lesson, we'll get started using Lucidchart for entity relationship diagrams. Use the link provided on Blackboard to sign up for an education account. Make sure you do sign up for the student account because that way you can get unlimited documents. Once you put in your information for the education account, go ahead and say Start Free Account. There'll be a couple of other options to click through. You'll see on the side that it says 0 of 3 active documents. When you validate your .edu email address, that should change. In order to upgrade to the education account, I'm going to go up to where my email address is and click the drop down. Go to Account Settings. From here on the left it says Education Upgrade, try it for free. I'm going to click there. I'm going to click this button to have it send a confirmation email so that I can get the upgrade. It might take a little while for the verification email to come in, so I'm just going to close this window. From here you'll see it actually offers the ERD as one of the diagrams that we can create. Let's choose blank ERD. Lucidchart will then open up a new window where you can work on your document. So one of the nice features of Lucidchart is that you can actually share your document with other people through email, similar to how you would a document in Google Drive or Dropbox. Instead of uploading your project file to Blackboard, I'll just have you share it with the email address here. I'm going to click on the title and rename this Practice ERD and close this dialog box. If you look on the left-hand side, you can see the different options for the diagram. The entity relationship one is at the bottom. If you ever lose this box, all you need to do is go to the bottom and go to plus shapes. Here it allows you to add different kinds of shapes to your diagram. Under software, notice that entity relationship is already checked. This wouldn't be the case if you just opened up a regular blank document. Let's close this window. You can also reorganize the left panel by clicking and dragging the shapes. I'm going to pull entity relationship up near the top. Here I've opened up the practice problems located on Blackboard in today's class. Before constructing the model in Lucidchart, let's read through the case together. There's an upcoming dog show in Amarillo, and the management wants you to help them keep track of some of the data from the event to make things run smoothly. They want to record each owner, dog, and club that is involved in the show. They want to know each owner's name and address, each dog's breed and class, and each club name. Each dog is owned by only one owner, although each owner may enter more than one dog in the competition. An owner can be entered in the system without a dog, but a dog must have owner information. Each club has multiple owners that join, and each owner can be part of more than one club. Owners must compete as part of a club, but a club does not have to have members represented that year. Let's go through this case step by step with the different parts of the ERD. The first thing we want to do is to decide what we want to keep track of. What are our entities going to be? In this example, I've underlined them for you. They want to record each owner, dog, and club that is involved with the show. Hover over the first box under the entity relationship shapes, click it and drag it onto the canvas. Here you'll see that there's a place for the entity title as well as a place for different attributes. Double-click the top portion and let's call this one owner. Now remember, this is a blueprint, so rather than saying owners, let's just say owner because it's a blueprint of what an owner could look like. Let's leave the attributes blank for now and finish the rest of the entities. So we have owner, we have dog, and we have club. Click and drag the shape to bring dog and club out into the canvas as well. And double-click the top bar and enter the name. The organization can matter for what it looks like from an aesthetic perspective, but it doesn't really matter as long as the model's correct. The next thing that we want to do is input the attributes. So after we have the nouns ready, now we're going to add the characteristics. If we take a look back at the story, we see that they want to know each owner's name and address, dog's breed and class, and each club name. Let's start with the owner. So under owner, I'm going to double click the first field and put in something like O name. Naming conventions differ from where you are. Some different ideas could be O name or owner underscore name. Just make sure it doesn't have any spaces in it. Let's go with O name here. And address. Now, if we take a look at this a little bit more closely, you'll remember from the other lesson that we do need a primary key whenever we have an entity, and we don't have one specified here. So first you should ask yourself, can we use the owner name or the owner address as a primary key? If I have an owner name, will it uniquely identify which owner instance it is that I have? Probably not, right? Because you could have two owners with the same name. We could separate it out into first and last name, but let's just leave it like this for now. Similarly, if you have two people in the same household that are both competing in the show, they could have the same address. Because a primary key isn't directly given to us, we'll need to make one. This will be what we call a virtual key. So in Lucidchart, what I'm going to do is actually double click the last field. I'm going to right click the last field, say delete row. I can double click where O name is, right click, and say insert row above. Now, of course, I could have just entered it to begin with, but this will just show you how to manipulate the rows a little bit better. So let's create our virtual key of OID. Let's underline it to indicate that it is a primary key. We can now do the same thing for the dog and the club. So let's see, they want to know each owner's name and address, dog's breed and class. Similarly here, we don't have a good primary key indicated, so let's make one up that's virtual. I'm going to call it DID and underline it to make sure that everyone knows it's a primary key. And then also double click to add breed. And double click to add class. I'm going to make this lowercase as well, just for consistency's sake. We also want to know each club name. And again, we don't have a primary key specified, so let's make one up. Let's call it club ID and underline it. And I'll also insert club name. Let's call it C name. If I want to get rid of this last field, double click, right click, delete row. Okay, so we now have the entities and the attributes. The third step is to decide what is related. If I look back at the story, you can see in the blue and the red, we have the relationship information. Each dog is owned by only one owner. So if we stop there, we do know that dog and owner, that there is a relationship between them. So let's go ahead and click on, you'll see it turns red. I can click on dog and drag up to owner. The default relationship that it will create is a one-to-many, but we can change that accordingly. In red, we also see each club has multiple owners that join. So we know there's a relationship between owner and club. So again, I'm just going to click on the side of owner and drag over to club and release. And again, it makes the default a one-to-many relationship. Okay, we have our entities, we have our attributes, we have relationships, but now we need to determine what the correct cardinality is, minimum and maximum, for these relationships. We can also put a sub-step in here under entities for making sure that we have a primary key. Okay, so let's read the blue portion again. Each dog is owned by only one owner. Each dog is owned by only one owner, so that indicates some kind of one, although each owner may enter more than one dog in the competition. So it sounds like this is a maximum cardinality for each side. So a dog is owned by only one, so a maximum of one owner. But an owner can enter more than one dog in the competition. So on here, we're going to have each dog, for each dog, how many maximum owners can we have? So what you need to do is actually click on the relationship itself. And I'm going to drag this so you can see more of the options. So click on the relationship, and then at the top you'll see the left side, basically where you started the drag, and then the right side where you ended the drag. So we want, we'll probably have to change this momentarily, but for each owner, we can have multiple dogs, but a dog can only be owned by one owner. So we're going to need a 1 maximum on the owner side, and a many maximum on the dog side. So you actually need to flip this around right now. So an owner can have many dogs. Let's leave it like this for now. But a dog can only have a maximum of 1 owner. Okay, so here we have the maximum cardinality. Now let's decide what the minimum cardinality is. So an owner can be entered in the system without a dog, but a dog must have owner information. So this tells us that for an owner, a dog can be optional, can have that 0. So let's change this side. Again, I'm going to click the relationship. So an owner doesn't have to have a dog in the system. So let's choose this endpoint, and I'm going to change it to the 0 to many, minimum maximum. The other side, but a dog must have owner information. So if a dog has to have owner information, this side should be a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 1. So I'm going to change this endpoint to be min and max of 1. Okay, we're getting close to having a complete ERD. Let's take a look at the red text again. So each club has multiple owners that join, and each owner can be part of more than one club. So it sounds like what? We have, for each club, we can have multiple owners, and an owner can be part of multiple clubs. So this sounds like a many-to-many case. So I'm going to click the relationship line and change both sides to have a maximum of many. Now you can skip just doing the maximum if you figure out what the minimum is while you're figuring out the relationship. I'm just putting it in as a placeholder for the sake of the lesson. If we read further, we have owners must compete as part of a club. So if an owner enters, they have to have club information. So this is indicating that an owner has to have a minimum of 1 club, but can be part of multiple clubs. So we're going to change this side to be 1 minimum, many maximum. But a club does not have to have members represented that year. If we have a club, the club doesn't have to have members that year that are represented. So on this side, we're going to have a 0 minimum and a many maximum. So let's change this endpoint to be 0 minimum, many maximum. Now we're pretty close. One of the things that we need to do is reevaluate this many-to-many relationship. So if you watch the other part of the lesson, for a many-to-many relationship, we need to have an intersection table or an intersection entity. So what I'm going to do is choose a standard line from the shapes on the left side and drag it over. Then I'm going to orient it so that it comes off of the relationship line. Now this arrow I do not want, so I'm going to click on the line and change the endpoint here to none so that it just is a simple line. From here, I'm going to grab one more entity, and what we're going to do is we're going to call this either owner club or club owner, doesn't matter. I'm going to call mine owner club. And if you remember, what happens next is we're actually going to add the primary keys from owner and club to this table, like so. So owner ID, let's underline it. Club ID, and let's underline that. Double click, right click to delete the last row. If we take a look at the ERD now, we're very close to it being complete. We have most of the information that we need. In order to make it extremely simple to go from the diagram to actual tables, what we're going to do is actually add the foreign keys to the diagram. So our very last step after deciding what the cardinality is to add those foreign keys. So for the case of owner and dog, we have a one-to-many relationship. So what is the rule? We take the primary key from the owner side, from the one side, and put it on the many side. So we're going to take the primary key from the one side and put it on the many side as a foreign key. So in the dog table, I'm going to double click, right click, insert row below, and put in OID. Now I'm not going to underline it because it is a foreign key. It's not a primary key here. Instead, I'm just going to put parentheses next to it that it is a foreign key. For the many-to-many case, the primary keys in the owner club table actually both serve as a composite primary key and as foreign keys because they're references from one table to the other. So what we're going to do is just indicate that like this. I'm going to take away the underline though. So we have OID, CID, and they're both foreign keys. We now have a complete entity relationship diagram that we can use to create tables in an actual database. And the data issues that we discussed in the previous class will be avoided because we've taken the time to model it properly. From here, if you can, go through the rest of the mini examples in the slides provided. And you can use this as a reference while you're working on your project. If you have any specific questions about today, please let me know. In the next class, we'll continue to talk about the nuances of the entity relationship diagram.